I'm going to ask you to stand right back up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Molly, if you could help me with the roll call, please.
Alderperson Henry. Here. Alderperson Schaefer.
Here.
Alderperson Valdy.
Here.
Alderperson Wilkin.
Here.
Alderperson Price.
Here.
And then Alderperson Grimmer and Alderperson Eicher are excused this evening. Mayor Atwell.
Present.
Administrator Hafner.
Here.
Thank you very much. If I can get an approval for the minutes of May 15th or amendments?
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. That went the way I hope the rest of them go. Okay, number 5, City of Delafield citizens' comments. Come on up.
All right.
Name and address, and if you could please speak into the mic. And push the button so the red light turns on. There you go.
My name's Susie Austin. I'm at 411 Bleecker Street here in Delafield, and I'm with the Delafield Arts Foundation. And I'm here to give a report on our concert that we just had this past weekend, our very first one of the year. And it was Pat McCurdy, and we had 550 people at the height of everything. And that was about 200 more than what we had last year when he came. He was our last act last year. But it was cold and dark, so we had him here again, and it paid off. We did have a counter there who does counting professionally. But his impression was that there were a lot more families there this year than there were last year. And we had a couple of successes. The winner, we had a 50-50 raffle, and the winner of the 50-50 raffle donated his half back to the foundation and the stage. And we did have a few people ask about sponsorships. And today I had someone reach out to me about renting the venue. So I directed them to the calendar on the city page. So, yeah, and so our next one is going to be a little bit more low-key. It's kind of a beer garden type atmosphere, more acoustic, and a couple of local acts. Kaya Bratz, who played with us last year, and she plays around town here, and Pewaukee and Heartland, and a band called Be the River Band, and also local, acoustic, a business owner who has a little bit of a following, but that's what we're doing on June 28th. And I know Mark Schaefer was there, and Mayor Atwell, and I think I saw you. I was there. You were there, see?
You didn't see me
You didn't
dance?
think I was looking, did you? But
You didn't see me dancing
there?
with Pat? Yeah.
Oh, well, of course, you were there.
That's right.
So, I hope you can all come to the next one, and then on the 21st of July, we have the Jimmy's, that's our third one. That'll be the big one of the year, but I felt like the whole foundation felt that everything was very successful, and it was a plus. So, that's that.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who would like to be next? Jim, come on up.
Jim Ryer, 924 Lake Drive, City of Delafield. Good evening, everybody. I'm here as the friend of Bark River, organizer and founder and leader of it. And I wanted you to just know that I reviewed part of the plan for this upcoming subdivision, replacing the golf course at St. John's. And as far as the Friends of Bark River, that was formed back in 2014, for those of you who don't know, and we've had over 760 man-hours to clear up the invasive species that have clouded the view of the Bark River and the use of the Bark River and the access to the Bark River, and we continue to do that. And we're proud of what we've done, and we've invested a lot of time, community, and effort, and it's been a lot of fun as volunteers working together with chainsaws and weed eaters. But the point of the story is it's a great example of what we as a community can do together. And we think that this particular plan, if it goes forward, will respect the access and use of the Bark River Trail, and the Bark River shoreline. So it is preserved for the public to use, to have access to it, and to shine like the opposite side of the river on the south side. And those of us who live in Delafield and spend a lot of time walking there the Southside Bark River facilitates the opportunity for people to really enjoy the river, take a look at it, walk with their families, their dogs, their friends. It's just a real great way to keep people together. And it's a connector, as I see from the golf course development, down through the north side of the Bark River to give the opportunity for people to share time together and actually connect between the new development and downtown Delafield, a real connecting trail. And so I hope that you consider, when the plan is presented, to make sure that the theme about it is to protect the river and its great environment, which creates this whole unique thing we call Delafield. And also what's important is we develop a multi-use trail to enable everybody and every type of person and group to go, and also for the DPW to be able to maintain the area. So I trust that you'll give it your great consideration. I'm looking forward to hearing the presentation tonight. But as the founder and leader of the Friends of Bark River, it is really symbolic of what I think this community can be and will be and continue to be, a group of people that really care about it and want to protect it and preserve it. And it also fits in with the connection that we should have as a community. But when you look down the river, and you see now on the south side of the river how far you can see, because we've developed that in the sense of creating access to the river and visual connection to the river. It's beautiful. And everybody says how great it is now. Trust me, when I came here in 2010, you couldn't see the river. It was filled with debris, old pipes, and invasive species buckthorn. And we were able to mitigate the whole damage. And now people are there with weddings, with family gatherings, and it's really wonderful to see, and I hope we continue that as who we are as a group and family and a community. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comments. Mary, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Mary Daniel, here in Delafield at 309 Wisconsin Avenue. This evening, I'd like to speak to B at the Plan Commission, and specifically the Oakwood Drive Plan Conditional Use for St. John's Estates, and even more specifically, the Riverwalk Agreement between the developer and the City of Delafield, which is a good thing. I just have a couple of questions. You know I do. Some of it has to do with maintenance. And in the e-packet, my pages that came up said there was an Exhibit A and an Exhibit B, and those pages were blank. I'm sure it's out there someplace. Number 2, and I'll read it to you quickly because I didn't want to, probably some people haven't read it. Under maintenance, Delafield shall at all times maintain the access easement area in a neat, safe condition, free of accumulated paper, debris, and other refuse. Maintenance shall be determined by Delafield in accordance with the maintenance standards and guidelines that it adopts from time to time, including the removal of any obstruction in the walkway, including diseased trees, overgrown brush, and the like. All costs and expenses incurred shall solely be borne by the City of Delafield. So I guess I have a quick question. What department in the City of Delafield will oversee the trail? And as always, what's the anticipated maintenance cost for this wonderful new trail? Who determines what trees are good and must come down? And the other question I have, has the Department of Public Works and the City Forester given any input into this? And the next part of the easement is number 6, reasonable rules and regulations. Delafield, with the input from the developer, shall have the right to promulgate reasonable rules, restrictions, and regulations governing the hour or other limitations of use, maintenance, operation, enjoyment of the easement area, so long as the rules, restrictions, and regulations are of general applicability. Each party to this agreement agrees to honor any rules, restrictions, regulations promulgated under this agreement by the other party. So, again, who in the City of Delafield determines what is reasonable with the city, with the developer? So also, will this easement plan agreement be part of Park and Rec's plans, et cetera, et cetera. In my opinion, maybe this easement needs a little bit more specific things. It's a great thing. I work along the Bark River also, so it's a good thing. So I'm glad to see it's happening. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sherwin, for that.
Do I have to press the little button on the bar on the bottom? Boom.
Thank you. I'm not sure if
Well,
that's...
that's not you, Mary.
Come on up.
Shockingly, I'm not speaking for myself tonight.
Hi, I'm Kathy McCormick. I live at 108 Hickory Court in Delafield. I actually am just speaking on a proxy basis for my next door neighbor, Jennifer Jeske, who was unable to attend. And it's Jeske, Jaeschke. And Jennifer is at 110 Hickory Court. And she wrote this. These are exactly the same comments that she made at the Planning Commission meeting. So I'm not sure if I need to read the whole thing, but I'll try to just paraphrase as best I can. So what she wanted to do is express some general concerns about traffic and parking, and I would actually echo that. We do have some traffic and parking problems in Delafield. And her concerns are based on the new development and how much development is coming in with the various properties. All right, let me just read. She thinks Mr. Irwin did a lovely job giving great consideration to the golf course to St. John's Estates, and she wanted that stated. The fact that the traffic and the parking is problematic, she would like to have written into the notes. And she would love to know from the council, how are we going to handle at least 200 more cars in this city? The traffic is just going to be horrific. She's come to realize through attending these meetings to look at any specific detail on the plans on the agenda is challenging at best. She's just concerned about how they come out electronically. They're illegible in her opinion. She appreciates that the plans for the proposed St. John's Estate were made available at City Hall, but that she felt it was a little bit inconvenient that she had to go there to look at the plans to see what was going on, that, she as a citizen had to make the effort to do that. So, and I don't know if at planning we made any, I think it's part of the recommendation, I don't know if it's going to be in there or not, but she was very concerned about the no-mow path. They were looking for a no-mow path between St. John's Estate and where we are in Valley Road Farms. They don't want that path to be mowed, and we did discuss that at the Planning Commission meeting, and I don't know where that stands, and I'm sure it'll be part of the Planning Commission's presentation later. Concerns about motorbikes and ATVs along that path right now. We're getting a lot of ATVs and motorbikes on the golf course, and I would hope that we can somehow mitigate that from continuing to occur. Hang on. Oh, and she was concerned about the 20-foot rear setback, and I know, Mr. Irwin, she talked to you, and I don't know if any discussions or decisions took place after Planning Commission. I don't want to have to read through all of this, but if we could just put that into the minutes, I think, traffic was her biggest concern, the setbacks and the no-mow path. So just consideration for those things. And I echo Jennifer's concerns on the traffic. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Who'd like to be next? Is there anyone else? Anybody else for citizens' comments? Seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. Move on to number 6, special order of business. A ceremonial swearing in and pinning of City of Delafield Police Officer Ethan Herman. Do you want mine? Thank you. Try not to bring it with me.
All right, just do it like this. raise your right hand. All right, so repeat after me. I,
I,
Ethan Herman,
Ethan Herman,
having been appointed a City of Delafield police officer,
having been appointed a City of Delafield police officer,
hereby swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
hereby swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of said office to the best of my ability.
of said office to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ethan.
No, not you. You're watching. We'll see how tough you are.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now it's signed and it's all official. Okay, we'll move on to number 7, consent agenda. 7A, approval of resolution 2023-11 regarding the city's 2022 compliance maintenance annual report, submittal to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, DNR, for the city's wastewater collection system.
I move to approve Resolution 2023-11.
A second.
Great. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to board committees and commission reports. 8A, licenses, discussion of possible action regarding the approval of the 2023-2024 alcohol beverage retail licenses. Molly?
All right, yeah. So we had everybody in time for licenses and renewals, so that's great. The licenses that are up for renewal are all of the standard ones. The only caveat is that the Commodore is still in process, so their license needs to be approved separately as a license that we're granting with issuance pending the
Opening.
the Waukesha County Health approval. Sorry about that. So, I just need a motion for the City of Delafield 2023 alcohol beverage retail licenses to approve those, and then another one for the Commodore, and then finally, we do have, I think, 6 cigarette licenses also this year, so.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we'll go on to 1A. Is there a motion for 1A? Or if you want to group them all together, up to you.
I'll move to approve 1A, I'm sorry, yes. 8A, 1, 2, and 3.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Dirk got the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to B, Planning Commission. Commission report by Alderman Eicher. He is not here. I don't think there was anything particularly that went on at the Planning Commission of note, other than the items that were up for discussion as we move through the agenda tonight. So we'll move on to B2, discussion and possible action on the following items. DELC 0792990 and DELC 0793997 Oakwood Drive, owner Hendricks Commercial LLC, applicant George Orwin III. Applicant is requesting approval of a plan development, conditional use, general development plan, and site plan for a single-family conservation design subdivision known as St. John's Estate. You guys want to come on up? Share with us your name and address, and tell us about where you are in the project.
Good evening. My name is George Irwin. My address is 17320 Windermere. It's in Brookfield, and I am the applicant. And my engineer is here as well, and I'll let him spell his name.
Josh Podelko, Trio Engineering.
Can you spell your last name?
You bet. Just like it sounds. Pudelko.
I don't think I've ever spelled it that way. Thank you.
So, by way of background, we've been in front of the Plan Commission on several occasions. We've been in front of Public Works. We've had numerous public hearings. We've sought the input of community members, surrounding neighbors. We've attempted to address each and every concern that was ever raised by any of the neighbors concerning the development of this project. When I stated at the outset, my objective was to try and build one of the most attractive subdivisions in Waukesha County, and I think we're well on our way to accomplish that task. It was critically important in connection with this project to make sure that this subdivision honored the integrity of St. John's Military Academy. I wanted to create connectivity with it. I wanted to maintain the integrity of it. I wanted to respect the neighbors to the west. I wanted to create connectivity to the downtown area. And all of those have been developed in this plan where we have more than 50% of the site held as open space. I'd be happy to answer any of your specific questions. The connectivity that we've talked about is sidewalks throughout, an asphalt path to Cushing's Park, additional path trails to Liberty Park, a permanent access easement agreement. I note that there was one comment concerning the access easement agreement. The document that is in front of you is a document that was submitted to city staff and city attorney. It is not something that's specifically up for approval tonight. Tonight it's simply about our general plan approval and our preliminary plan approval. I expect to have the city attorney make comments to the document, certainly with city staff input. The objective was to give the authority to the city generally. You don't want to be too specific. If I'm representing a city, I want the authority to be given to me to maintain it, and I as the city will decide who and when that is going to be delegated. So that to me made a lot of sense as written, but certainly just wait for your city attorney to tweak that document. I'm sure it'll come up again at a later date. We have a landscape plan that is, in my opinion, second to none. We're planting hundreds of trees. We have a lot of dead trees on St. John's Golf Course that haven't been maintained for a number of years. Those will be taken down. The trees that are within the right-of-way or in the path of the development will be replaced at least a 3-to-1 ratio. We've established rain gardens throughout the project. Thousands of different plantings will be put in those rain gardens so that we can have color throughout the year and create vision corridors for both the neighbors to the west as well as the neighbors that we'll call it home. The mayor had a number of concerns that have been addressed. Exeter Street was one, parking, the students walking on the campus. We've addressed those in a pretty comprehensive way. It's gone before the Public Works, and they've approved the plan for upgrading the parking and access on Exeter Street. We've created connectivity to Hillcrest by creating pathways beyond the subject property. In short, what we've attempted to do is honor what we said, which is to bring one of the most high-quality projects to the city, honoring this unique property. This is one of the most important properties in the city of Delafield, and I'm very proud to be associated with it because I think what we have an opportunity to do is really create a wonderful project where people will be more connected to the downtown and hopefully using the paths. I personally biked 15 miles in Delafield on Saturday, and by the way, the pathway on the west side has to be a little bit more improved. We got to put some stone down on it. Right now, it's just earth, and I had to duck a couple of times on trees. So you might need to get out there a couple more times. I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
As a member of the tree board, I always look for that tree mitigation plan, and I was pleased to see a very thorough tree census preservation and mitigation.
We counted every tree on the site.
And I'm familiar with, there are a lot of dead trees there too, and I know there was a question in citizens' comments Mary had about, like, assessing what trees are going to be put there. Frankly, the first look at, when I first looked at that, I really love, not that it matters what I think, but the spaces that you have between what would be the lots and then the roads. It gives a sense of separation and privacy, but just a really pleasant, I think it will be lovely. And I have a silly question, but some of the trees represented here are in white. Are those the dead ones on the drawing, or is that just an artist's rendition, or what?
Those are trees that'll remain, but they're not protected. So we're choosing to keep them. A lot of them are like Norway maples. They're not on the protected list.
Oh, okay. They're not. Okay. Great. Okay, that's good to know. I wasn't sure looking at that, but yeah, I guess the other question that came up at citizens' comments was about traffic. I see it looks like one is traffic calming because you have a circle through the area rather than straight roads, so it's less likely people will be racing.
Yeah, there was a traffic impact analysis, and that was discussed extensively at the Public Works Committee, and whether or not there were any flawed assumptions or good assumptions in it. I think that the conclusion was that, we have 3 different access points to this property, and the impacts will not be material with respect to the standards that they typically talk about. There was actually somebody from I don't know who it was, but he's a DOT gentleman, and he seemed awful smart, and so I respected what he had to say.
On Public Works?
Yes, ma'am.
They're scary smart, yeah.
What?
Any other questions?
No?
I am.
Does anybody care to make a motion?
I'm looking at the plan now, so I'd have to scroll back. Mark, do you have it faster?
So we need a motion on A and B. I move to approve items B2A and B2B. You need a description? Need a little more info?
Those are separate items?
Yeah, they're separate items, so probably best to keep them separate, because we didn't really speak to the second one.
Right. I move to approve item B2A for DELC 0792990 and DELC 0793997 Oakwood Drive, approving plan development, conditional use, and general development plan and site plan for single-family conservation subdivision known as St. John's Estates.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay? You want to speak to the plat? Do you have anything else to add there?
The plat is simply more of an engineering thing. It's gone through, it's been reviewed twice at the Plan Commission. It's gone to the Department of Administration. It's been approved by the Department of Administration. It's gone in front of Waukesha County. They've issued their no objection letter. Obviously, will be a minor cleanup that are based on Plan Commission's suggestions, but I think it's in good shape to be approved, and I ask that it be approved tonight.
I move to approve item B2B, DELC 0792990 and DELC 0793997 Oakwood Drive, owner Hendricks Commercial Properties, seeking approval of preliminary plat for single-family residential subdivision known as St. John's Estate.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll give it to Paul. It looked like a tie. Then we had you conceded, right? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Thank you for all the hard work, guys. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on to 2BC, DELC 09897-505 North Lapham Peak Road, DELC 07989799001, 427 North Lapham Peak Road. And I'm going to skip because there's just too many there. Owner Barron Property LLC, part of DELC 07989770001, 333 North Latham Peak Road, owner applicant Legion Post 196. Applicant Jim Barron's applicant is requesting preliminary plat approval for a 29-lot, single-family residential subdivision. So again, this is just for the preliminary plat.
Are you looking for a move to approve?
Well, we don't have an applicant here. So it's up to you guys whether you want to postpone this because we don't have an applicant.
It's on a time
Oh, is it?
frame, so I believe that either it would have to be approved or denied tonight. I can't be, I don't want to speak 100%, but I'm pretty sure that that's the status that it's in
Is
right
it?
now.
Okay. So that is correct. So we'd have to redo a number of things if he doesn't get approval today. I can tell you from the Planning Commission, it was unanimously approved, that the staff, all the issues that were brought up or sent to staff to review have been reviewed, and those items are included in this document. So personally, from my experience, I feel confident that it's ready for approval.
I've walked the property and spoken with the applicant many times, and many of the people who live around that area. So I'm comfortable making a motion to approve if I can get a second.
I second.
Okay, is that a good enough motion for you, Molly?
Do you want me to read it out? I can do that.
Yeah, if you could just read at least to the, what it is that's being approved.
Perfect timing.
Oh!
Come on up. Yeah.
Man, you always make it just in time, doesn't he, Jackie?
I know. I love it. You made a great entrance. We were. Yeah. If you want to.
We need a correction on the motion, otherwise we might have been done.
Well, we did. We didn't have a vote, we just had a motion, so we can motion and then discuss.
Okay.
So the motion's already on the table.
So, and there's a motion and a second.
Yeah, you were going to clarify the motion, I think is where we
Yes.
left it.
So, do you want me to read all the little DELCO things? I can do that.
No,
No, it really should be sufficient just to say motion to approve agenda item number.
yeah.
All right, I move to approve agenda item under the Plan Commission BC, or 2C rather, on the, for the applicant Barron, Jim Barron, for the development along the roads listed.
Okay, does the second concur? All right. Applicant, name and address, and what do you have to say?
Jim Barron, 757 Garrison Court.
Yeah, you turn it up. It's not, you just press the little bar.
There we go.
Jim Barron, 757 Garrison Court. And, well, we've been through this for about 6 months on a number of different approvals. The status right now is that if you approve the preliminary plat, we will start working on some kind of developer's agreement. We're also going to be working on a final plat, which we have not submitted yet, and Amy did ask. She was concerned that she wants to have that moving, but it's going to be a month or so before we're back with the final. There'll be some tweaks to this thing, but it hasn't changed too much, so I appreciate your support.
We haven't voted yet, or they haven't voted yet.
Anyway, there's not much more to say, I think.
All right, thank you very much. All right, is there any discussion?
It's a minor detail, and I think maybe we could amend the motion. The declaration of restrictions.
Yes.
Section 22, properly designed and located kennels not exceeding 100 square feet for household pets will be approved, providing they're properly screened from public view by landscaping. Sounds very reasonable.
Okay. Well, I
Section
took
18.
Delafield Woods and modified it, and we may still make some modifications for the final. But there's some things that are completely banned in other subdivisions. I thought if there's a way we can accommodate it.
No, that sounds reasonable. Section 18 bans it. It says outdoor kennels or enclosures are prohibited.
well,
So I'm thinking maybe we should
We'll clean it.
Just
strike the last
like what
sentence from
George
section
had said, what we're voting on here tonight is the preliminary plat and only the preliminary plat. Those other documents are in there for work in
just support.
progress for your reference.
Great.
There are going to be, I mean, that's a first draft. I can tell you that. It's a first draft. If you find typos, we're going to have to deal with them. So.
Okay.
But good to mention it so that he can work on it in the future.
So it has no impact on the motion.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you.
Might be the quickest time you've been in a meeting ever. And you've been in a lot of meetings. Okay, B2D, ordinance number 816, an ordinance removing or amending sections of Article 1 of the City of Delafield zoning ordinance, including Section 52-11, definition for guest house, Section 52-12, compliance and use restrictions, Section 52-13, building location requirements, Section 52-17, height regulations, and Section 52-23, pier length placement. So let me just make a general statement about this one, is that, this is what we're calling this year, we're calling the year of the list. And I'll remind you that throughout the last 5 years since I've been mayor, there's been various issues where the code is conflicted with itself. And then staff has had to make decisions on how to follow one side or the other side. So this is the year we're going through those 5 years of conflicts and unusual situations, and we're working one by one to try to clean them up. This group here was basically easy ones. There was no fundamental change per se. It's basically just clarifying so that sections match and the intent is the same. So if there's any particular questions, if you've read into detail on any of them, we can certainly go through them. But I'll just give you the general statement of their pretty benign changes. Really just to remove conflicts where two paragraphs were in different agreements, intending kind of the same thing but using different words.
So the removal of definition of guest house, we still have a way of dealing with that in another ordinance? I didn't quite understand. the reason
That was
for
in the
eliminating
definition
that.
section, and we're just removing it from the definition section, as I recall, because we don't really have a defined ordinance for guest house. So we basically are eliminating it to avoid the confusion. Kind of a similar situation on pier length and placement. The city does not control pier length and placement. We have a reference in our code that says we do, but our ability to control anything that ends at the water's edge. So to have that in our code is just confusing.
There was some language regarding alternative structures after the primary structure has been removed, that the additional structures cannot remain on there. What's the enforcement on that? Like, is there language on how that's enforced anywhere in our code?
Tom, you think you can help me out with that one, or?
Off the top of my head, I don't have the answer to that.
Okay, I'm just curious, like if...
Is there something in there particularly you can read for me, or?
Well, I'm just curious if a home is removed and there's a garage that's sitting there, then after that, according to this, it sounds to me like that would have to be removed as well. But I know there's still
Yeah,
properties that
okay,
have
that
those.
helped. So for example,
Yeah.
there was a part of the code that said that the scenario that took place is somebody had a home, they wanted to build an auxiliary building, they built the auxiliary building, and then they tore down the home. What this is saying that if you build that auxiliary building and you can't, you have to, if you're going to tear down the house to build a new house, you have to do it within, I think it was 24 months. Otherwise, the auxiliary building, is as best as I'm recalling the discussion of Planning Commission, was that, that you wouldn't be able to continue occupancy on it. So we're trying to, the purpose of that was to try to, one area of the code implied that you could tear down the house, and the other one said that you couldn't. So basically, you can tear it down, but you have to replace it, and there's a timeline of which you have to replace it, which clarified the whole thing.
But what happens if you don't? Like, there are properties that have garages that used to have homes that don't anymore.
Yeah, so that anybody that's existing is grandfather, this is looking forward.
Right, oh, I understand that, but you're saying that this is just
Danielle, I've got
clarifying.
it.
You
There
got
we
it,
go.
okay.
Yeah. So if you look
I
at,
danced long enough.
Yeah.
if you look at E and then sub 2 and 3,
Okay,
it talks about that if you remove the principal structure and leave an accessory structure, that you got to put up a letter of credit, and that letter of credit can then be used to demolish the accessory structure if a new principal structure isn't built within, I think, 3 years. It's
3 years?
and the building inspector would be following up on this to make sure that this is all happening?
Yes,
Okay,
that would be the building inspector.
and so this is all.
Yeah, number 1 says that a new principal structure is constructed at the same lot within 3 years of the.
3 years.
And this is actually new, so this isn't cleaning, I mean, is this new to the code then?
This is new.
It's new, but it's a clarification of two different things that were in there that left it ambiguous or unclear as to what the building inspector could do. Now it's clear.
Okay, so anything that would have been in the past, like, there would have been no clarification on what would happen
Right.
if they didn't rebuild the house?
And let me also note that in sub 4, it also gives the Plan Commission the ability to grant an extension on that timeline.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look down below, there's some of the crossed out language is probably what was so confusing. I think this is so wonderful and tedious, so thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
I move to approve ordinance 816.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, Lake Welfare Committee, Mr. Price.
Yeah, Lake Welfare met last Wednesday, had a couple of interesting issues. One was a boathouse issue that kind of slipped through the cracks. It was an existing boathouse with some major repairs to it. It should have gone to Lake Welfare, but it didn't. Buildings inspector gave him a permit to do all the work. The work is done, and now we find out it's not really what it should be. So we've made a motion to send it back to Scott for a re-inspection to make sure everything does comply. We then approved a second boathouse in a similar situation, but this one was all up to speed. Then we had an issue with the city or the town of Neshota to decide how to maintain the outflow of the water coming out of the Lake County estates at the Nagawicca Avenue and Mission Road intersection. There's the water, it flows out of the subdivision, but it goes into the pipe on the property of City of Delafield into the lake. So we've got two jurisdictions. It's going through our property for a short time into the pipe, but all the water came from the city. So there is questions how we get this to be properly maintained. So we made a motion to ask the City of Delafield to work with the town to see if we can get a compromise that would
The
be
village of
properly handled.
Neshota?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, The dredging is moving along. SEH is settled on a contractor. Now they're deciding on what property owners are going to be dumping the silt on. So hopefully by the next council meeting, we'll have some kind of a final determination on that. Our Goose Roundup is on June 24th. We're looking for help because a number of the people on the committee cannot make that day because the government gives you the date. They don't let you pick one. So the date they picked is not good for us. So anybody who would like to go in the lake and search for geese that morning, we need some help, so. But there is going to be a roundup, and hopefully we'll catch them all on Ken's front yard again, but
Yeah,
it
just to
doesn't always work out
clarify,
that way.
the Goose Roundup is on June 22nd. Oh, that's right,
22nd. Well, you told me the 24th. Okay, thank you for the correction.
Yeah, okay,
Okay, that's it.
thank you. Okay, D, Park and Recreation Commission Tree Board Committee Report, Mr. Schaefer.
We had some personnel changes. Mike Burns, our former chair, retired from Park and Rec. We selected a new chair, me, and the vice chair remains Sherry Fleming. We also approved a motion, I'm sorry, we also welcomed two new members, Tom Schleifer and Leslie Donovan, to the Park and Rec. The commission approved a motion to put a $300 a day rental fee. Now that we have the stage and the porta potties there and electricity, we want to put a $300 a day fee on renting the park with use of the stage. It sounds like we've already had an inquiry for that, so. Any questions about that?
Great.
That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to E, Public Works Committee. Mr. Grimmer's not here. Tom, can you help him out a little bit?
Yeah, there's two primary things on the agenda. First of all, like we discussed already, St. John's subdivision was on that agenda. We worked through the engineering letter and clarified a few points as far as providing direction on which way to go on some different pipe materials and things like that. And then the second thing that was on that agenda was directed to Public Works by Paul Price's request and the Common Council, and that was the review of the traffic impact analysis for the Grain and St. John's subdivision and Beacon Hill with regards to trying to identify ways to improve traffic flow in the downtown area. So a general review was done. There was two different traffic analysis done. One was done just for the Grain, 705 Genesee Street, and then a second one was done that incorporated the Grain and the two new subdivisions all together. And what was identified is that there was a difference in traffic generation factors used between the two studies. They lacked consistency, whereas the Grain report assumed a higher trip generation for the Grain than the combined study did. And then also there was some other variables that were a little bit off, like when the combined traffic impact study was done, the unit counts were higher for the two subdivisions than what they ended up being. Between those two things, it's probably not a real significant impact, but the Public Works Committee felt like ultimately we should wait for build-out and then do a traffic impact analysis and feasibility study at that time. Do traffic counts at that time when it's occurring. Some ideas that were discussed were, the possibility of putting a traffic signal or a mini roundabout at the intersection of Main and Genesee Street. There was discussion about how improving flow of motor vehicle traffic could come at the expense of decreasing walkability. Generally, it's likely that if you did one of those intersection controls at Main and Genesee Street, you would need to take away intersection control at the two adjacent intersections, Milwaukee and Wells. But that's not definite, but that's likely. And also there is concern about whether those types of improvements could actually fit in the footprint that exists at Main and Genesee right now. But all that would have to be determined through a feasibility study, and the recommendation was to hold off until significant build-out occurs, when we can do some real-life traffic counts and then incorporate those into a study.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to Delahart. No Mr. Iker, so I'll refer you to the minutes on that. Police Commission.
No meeting, no report. We are meeting on the 28th.
Sounds good, thank you very much. Library Board, Ms. Henry.
Yes, we met this past Tuesday, and I just have a couple of things. The summer programming is out. It's a really cute little menu that has all of the dates and the activities. It's just really, really very nice. You can pick those up at the library. We did a change to our agenda and packet, so now supplemental materials will be available in the agenda packet on the city website, where in the past it hasn't been there. So you should be able to see what we're going to be talking about going into the meeting, just like you do at any of the other committees that we have here. And on June, mark your calendars for June 27th from 4 to 8. Friends of the Delafield is doing a fundraiser at Noodles in Delafield. So all you just have to do is mention that you're there for the library, or there is going to be, you should see some ads like on Facebook or on the library site that has a code you can use to order online that will automatically donate 25% of the sales if you use the code to the Friends of the Library. So.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Okay, Zoning Board of Appeals. No meeting, no report, right? I can do that one almost for you, Jackie. Okay, J, Promotion and Tourism Commission, Mr. Schaefer.
We had one, the hotel rep position resigned from the commission. And we sort of resolved this overpayment due to I believe, honest accounting error from one of our local hotels. They made about a $30,000 overpayment in their 2022 hotel tax. And they flagged that and requested that we refund that. The commission approved refunding that in Q3, or I'm sorry, after our Q3 revenues collected this year. That tends to be the Q3 and Q4, the majority of the commission's funding from the tax, so we'll be paying that back as soon as our Q3 revenue is collected. And that's it.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Lake Country Fire and Rescue Commission. Last meeting is May, and not aware of a future one that's scheduled. Lake Country Fire Board, that would be Mr. Grimmer. I don't believe they met, but if they did, I'd refer you to the minutes. M, Deer Management Committee.
Deer Management Committee met on May 16th, and our next meeting is tomorrow night. The big emphasis there, as communicated in the Delafield Communicator, is that the committee is looking for private citizens who are interested in setting up deer stands on their property. We currently have 6 deer stands set up on public property for Delhart and 2 at Lois Jensen, and we're looking for more places to put them out. So we'll see what we get tomorrow night.
Great, hopefully you get some emails and phone calls.
Absolutely right.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 9, no unfinished business. 10, Mayor's Report. 10A, update regarding overdose aid kits, the oak boxes placement in the city of Delafield. So the Public Works Department stepped up quickly, ordered the the oak boxes, installed them, in a couple different bathrooms in city parks. And they also installed one here in the hallway as you head towards the restrooms on the library side. And they actually ordered an additional one. So there's a total of 6 boxes in 5 of those being in the city park system, in the men's and women's bathrooms. They're all full, and the communication with the county on how to refill them and so forth has gone very smoothly. And again, no real additional labor cost associated with this because they're just tying it in with their regular bathroom checks that they do already, right? They just need to bring the stuff with them to refill the boxes as needed. Any questions on that? Maybe in about 6 months, we'll give you an update on how many we're going through. So you have some sense of how they're being used. Alrighty. B, discussion and possible action regarding the following items. 1, accept the resignation of Steve McCartney from the hotel representative position on the Promotion and Tourism Commission, term expiring April 2024.
I move to accept the resignation of Steve McCartney from Promotion and Tourism Commission.
I'll second.
Great. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Just for your knowledge, we have a candidate from ID who appears very interested in the position. So hopefully by the next council meeting, we'll be seeing another name on here for you to approve to replace Steve. Okay, we'll move on to new business. 11A, update from the police chief Nyren regarding enforcement efforts, warnings, citations, and observed compliance with the no-through trucking ordinance for Genesee Street through the downtown area. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for having me here. Hopefully you got a chance to read my letter in the packet there. I believe it was on page 248. But I appreciate everything going a little bit quickly today and getting to this. I just wanted to give you a brief update on a summary of what we're doing out there in regards to the trucking ordinance on Genesee Street. The Public Works Department was able to get the trucking signs, or the no trucking signs, up on Genesee Street or Highway C in the area of Oakwood Drive and as well as south of I-94. So our focus has been any trucks originating from north or south of those locations. We have not enforced anything coming off the interstate yet because we don't have signs at that location. Overall, I can say that we started the efforts on May 19th. I actually was lucky enough to get the first traffic stop out there because also I was one of the first people notified the signs were up. But we stopped a fair number of trucks in that first week. We did 13 what we call extra patrols, so 13 targeted efforts in those locations. And in those 13 extra patrols, we observed and stopped 18 trucks that were in violation. And it's not like we had to be nitpicky. We weren't stopping things right on the border. These were full-size cement and full-size dump trucks and full-size semis. So those 18 were stopped. They were provided with a document that explained the ordinance, what the exceptions to the ordinance were in regards to deliveries in the downtown and immediate surrounding area. And officers actually took it upon themselves. They took some of those papers to local sources of these trucks, so our local aggregate companies, and they provided them extra copies to distribute to truckers because not every cement truck or every dump truck is owned by those companies. They have people coming outside. And so they were able to distribute those, and by the second week and subsequent weeks all the way up through the 14th when I wrote this letter, we had conducted an additional 23 extra patrols with only 8 violations observed and stopped. We did get another one today before I came in, but they have been very few and far between. We've been noticing voluntary compliance. We have not received significant complaints from the truckers or the companies. However, we haven't issued any tickets yet. This has been the educational period where we're issuing warnings, and we are observing compliance. Now, eventually, we will be transitioning to citations to the company or the driver, and I would like to seek a little bit of clarification as to the desire of the board on that. But we're seeing a lot of that compliance, and I think it's been very successful, and it has not been an adversarial relationship. They've found alternate routes.
Good. It's also another, the benefits of it is the just the serenity of downtown with the lack of noise, and it helps to minimize traffic that's going through the downtown area, which we know we hear many, concerned comments on. And also, we have those expensive brick walks downtown, and these heavy trucks, are the lead things in causing damage to those. So as long as they can successfully find another route, I think it's a wonderful thing.
Any questions?
Thank you. Do you see that most of the detours are going over to the 83 corridor and going up that way instead?
If we get questions from the companies, that's pretty much the only place we can direct them. I've had questions about Highway P and other areas, but since they're outside our jurisdiction, we try to avoid directing people there because I don't want to send someone where they're going to get pulled over by another agency. We haven't seen a noticeable increase on Highway 83 of trucking, but that's very difficult to measure. It's very noticeable in the downtown, but any increases at other places have not been readily noticeable.
Great, thank you.
I'll just stay for the next one.
Okay, we got you on the next one too. Okay, B, discussion and possible action to adopt a police department vehicle use policy for qualified non-personal use vehicle usage to be incorporated into the City of Delafield Employee Handbook.
All right, so the next one. For many years, the chief of police has been issued a vehicle that they take home in the event they need to respond to an emergency situation. Essentially, we're always in on-call status and are required to respond to the city in an emergency. That being said, the use of said vehicle is governed by some very regimented IRS restrictions that require any personal use, even minor personal use, to be officially approved by the city. So I spoke with Administrator Hafner, and we were both pretty much in agreement that documenting this in writing to kind of solidify our practices as a city would be the best approach to this. And so I worked with my partners over in Heartland, got the policy that they use over there, reviewed it with Administrator Hafner, and we came up with this, which references the IRS rules for qualified non-personal use vehicles, and essentially puts a restriction on the use of it to 10 miles within the city borders or 10 miles of the location it's stored, which would be my residence in the village of Waukesha. And I felt that this allows for minor uses such as stopping for groceries on the way home or things like that, but use for vacations or recreational trips are expressly prohibited by the IRS rules. So this covers all that and also protects me if the IRS comes knocking, as this then authorizes the use within that 10-mile radius.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, so it's for discussion and possible action. So we're being asked, Tom, the council's being asked.
Yeah, so we're looking for approval of the policy for incorporation into the City of Delafield Employee Handbook.
Would this require an additional vehicle to the fleet then?
No, this is an existing vehicle.
But this is just housekeeping that formalizes and brings some definition to vehicle use by the chief in the past.
I'll move to approve the formalization of the police department vehicle use policy as expressed here.
I'll second.
All right,
Who
is,
had the second?
Paul,
Okay, I thought so. Thank you.
is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you.
All right. And we got you out of here by 8:05.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Good one, Jackie.
I'm here all night.
All right, 11C, discussion and possible action regarding approving the 2024 City of Delafield Common Council calendar and setting the 2023 City of Delafield trick or treat date, which is one of my favorite topics.
I've been waiting all night for this.
All right.
Oh, it's huge. I think the big discussion in the past has been the fact that some of us, and I would be guilty of that, I love Halloween on Halloween. However, it's on a Tuesday this year, and I think a lot of working parents and families who actually do the trick-or-treating would like it on a weekend, preferably a Saturday. And not that I was excited about the topic, but I did look at Saturday, the 28th of October, so I would suggest that for discussion unless someone has another idea.
I'm in concurrence with that one.
Do we know when the downtown one is?
It's usually a week before, I mean, roughly, if I'm remembering correctly, about usually like a week before.
I don't actually have that date.
Yeah.
I could probably briefly Google it. I would think it's been
Yeah.
set, but I did look at some other communities in the area and added those to the memo.
and
We're a
you-
little bit ahead of the curve, but also behind where I wanted to do it last year for 2023.
Well, we get calls on it.
We do.
Starting now. When
Yeah.
is trick or treat? It's quite amazing. And thank you for checking the Packer schedule and some of those other
Yeah.
important
It's
criteria.
important.
We're going to start calling you A+, Molly.
So the Saturday the 28th, and are we good with the same hours, 5 to 8?
Yeah. I mean, I for the newer members, I always chime in on that because it gives families some daylight hours, if that's what your preference is, but it also gives some early evening when it's dark hours for people that have that preference, but not too late that the candy givers want to go to bed.
Do you know if Heartland has set theirs yet?
Molly's memo had like the ones that were
Yeah, I was
posted.
looking, I didn't see that one.
So, yeah, that means I couldn't find anything for Heartland at the
Okay.
time of the memo last week.
But 5 to 8, I believe, is what was in the memo. Saturday, October 28th, from 5 to 8 p.m. is what we did last year, the times. So I'm sorry, did we make
have
the
your
motion? I
motion,
lost
or-
track.
Yeah.
Jackie did that the work, she should make the motion.
Yeah. So we're moving to the 28th, 8, right?
20.
I move that we set the trick or treat for the city of Delafield on Saturday, October 28th, 2023, between 5 and 8 p.m.
Second.
Great. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes.
So I'm also looking for a formal approval of the 2024 Common Council calendar. We have to put that out in the next month or so.
I move that we approve the 2024 City of Delafield Common Council calendar.
Second.
Wait, who had the second?
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes. All right, we'll move on to 11D, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 2023-10, a resolution to adopt the 2023 updated schedule of fees.
This resolution is to address the Liberty Park, the Park and Rec, as Alderperson Schaefer noted earlier, had suggested adding a fee of $300 per day for Liberty Park for their use because of the updated amenities. And there were a few items as I was going through the schedule, the fee schedule previously, the fish hatchery, the fee schedule, fee for returning the room to the required, table placement was approved, but there was never an amount assigned for that, so I just arbitrarily kind of assigned $50. If you're, would prefer to change it, we can do something else, but that seems like a pretty, low enough fee that, high enough that somebody would do it, but, low enough that if they forget, it's not gonna break the bank. And then the other fee is, there's some information in there about a Public Works Committee review fee that was passed in 2019. And when the fee schedule was updated to this format and passed in 2021, the first time, that was not included on there, so I just added that to that as a fee that council had already approved. So those three are the changes in red that are presented on the fee schedule for approval or consideration and approval tonight.
And the Liberty Park fee applies when the stage is installed, because that comes out in August, so the fee would cease at that point.
Yes.
So it's really a
And I assume,
stage fee.
I mean, I don't want to get into the details too much here, but if you want the park and you're not using this stage, I believe it's, the normal park fee is $85?
It's $115 for the full day and $65 for a half day.
Okay.
So I would ask that you clarify, because I'll have to clarify then in the schedule of fees, because I'm not sure I clarified that. I wasn't aware that it was just a specific stage fee. So if you want to clarify that in the motion so that I can amend the schedule of fees accordingly, to just adding the Liberty Park stage fee to be ineffective, only when the stage is in place, I think would be the best way to clarify that.
Correct. That is the discussion that we had in Park and Rec.
Molly, the other parks that have the $115 and $65 fee, is that all parks that have a pavilion structure?
So not all of them. I think there's certain, and even the Liberty Park space, if somebody wants to reserve that space, DPW will provide like picnic tables and a cordoned off area for that. And they have in the past. So it's not all pavilion rental. It's park space, reserved space.
Yeah, the motion in Park and Rec was for a Liberty Park stage rental fee. And as benchmarks, we used Fish Hatchery, I think it's $280. Our cost for that stage and the support facilities is around $300 a day. So it was intended as specifically as a stage rental.
The fee, on the fee schedule, it specifically says Liberty Park stage. Would that include then the park, is that what we're trying to decide? Does
Yeah,
that
that's what I'm
include,
trying to
or would they have to pay a
clarify.
separate fee for the
Yeah,
park
as to
and
what
the
it
stage?
exactly encompasses with the motion, so that I know as we're, providing that service upstairs, what it is that we're renting out. Is it just the stage area, or is it, the stage plus the use of the park?
Oh, I mean, I at least the way it seems logical in my mind is you rent the park, and then if you need the stage, you add the $300.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, makes sense.
That works. So it would be a separate listing, stage rental fee,
Yeah.
300. And obviously you need the park if you're renting the stage.
Yeah.
But you could rent the park without the stage. You'd still reserve the park for other purposes that don't require the stage, and then not pay the 300 for the stage.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion on that?
Does the wording in the schedule, if we moved to approve the resolution, does the wording in the schedule fit what we've discussed here, Molly?
I would just,
Modify that.
so what I have right now is to adopt resolution 2023-10 with the clarification that the Liberty Park stage fee is specifically to add the stage as an additional rental item, and that that Liberty Park would still be available to rent as a separate park facility.
Perfect. So moved.
Second.
All right, is there,
But if you rent the stage, you have to rent the park, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to amend the motion to,
Amend the motion to require park rental to have a stage rental, but not require stage rental to do a park rental. Does that make sense?
first half did.
Well, in the fee schedule, we could just put something in parentheses after the stage rental saying that rental of the use area is also required in addition to the stage fee.
all right, so at this point, I just added on as a separate park facility, and to further clarify that park rental is required in addition to the stage rental, but park rental does not require stage rental. So that's what I have for the motion, kind of.
All right, is this just about the stage, or is this the whole schedule, or the whole fee schedule?
Just about the
So-
stage and the other
and
two
the
items
other
she
two
mentioned.
items that are in red. So the fish hatchery fee, and then the public works fee that was approved previously, just being included on the fee schedule.
The rest of it as written with the verbal clarification on the stage.
Correct.
So the highlights that are on the rental application, are we talking about those separately?
That was just for reference.
It was
as
just
to
for
what-
reference, okay.
Yep, what we currently have for the paper documentation on that.
Those are not changes to the rental, like, I'm specifically referring to the no more than 3 games per season, is that?
No, that is just a policy, that's a standard form, that's not the actual fee schedule. So
Oh,
that's a
okay.
form, the fee schedule is the first couple of pages,
Are we discussing that separately? Or is that on here just for reference?
just for reference.
Okay.
I don't think we've ever.
I'm sorry, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so I believe we have a motion and a second. Is
We have
we
a
all
second.
set?
So I have Schaefer for the motion, and then Wilkin for the second, and then Wilkin, and an amendment with Schaefer, and an amendment seconded.
Second.
All right, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to 11E, update regarding City Hall front steps as requested by Mayor Atwell. The discussion and possible action on directing the Public Works Department to paint the step risers in an attempt to cover most of the rust stains. So I just asked to have this on the agenda so that you guys can be kept up to date with where we are in the process. It's totally up to you what you want to do with those steps. Nothing is perfect, is one option, and the other one is do something in the interim until, we go out for bid next year and possibly see construction sometime next year if you approve the additional money in the capital budget. I don't know if that's going to be 1 year, if that's going to be 2 years, I don't know. So take that into consideration as you decide how much effort you want to put into, making them acceptable looking to the citizens of Delafield.
So we have already done more than nothing. The council had asked us to readdress the patches where the light fixtures used to be. We did that. The patches look decent, but there was a few patch areas that were too far deteriorated to patch again. And so there was a couple areas where we physically cut out concrete and repoured a couple of small sections. And then after that, we did hand brush the steps, hand scrub the steps with muriatic acid at the mayor's request to try to remove or at least dull the rust stains on the concrete. It had a little bit of improvement from that, but it's difficult. They're pretty well established in there. And one of our seasonal employees, he's a retired gentleman that was a mason, so he's pretty good at this stuff. He suggested that if it's not good enough as a Band-Aid fix until the steps are replaced, that really the best option would be to paint the risers. It would be a tedious job. They would, use painting tape along the curvilinear lines at the top and the bottom of each riser. The paint will be subject to wear and chipping from foot traffic and shovels dinging it and things like that. And it'll be a pretty significant effort. We're figuring probably at least 20 man hours, a little bit of material cost, probably $100, $150 worth of paint. But right now we are, as you know, we're constantly behind. We're shorthanded. Not only do we need an additional employee, but right now we are down one employee from our normal crew, and there's a couple of tasks that we're trying to work through. One example is we're in the middle of doing sewer flushing right now, and we generally flush all of the sewer system once every 2 years. That was due to be done last year, and we didn't get to it, so we're doing it now. And so like for some of these tasks like the steps and like repairing our garbage enclosure and things like that, Paul's asking for direction from me on, do you want me to pull people off of the sewer flushing so that we get some of these things done? In my mind, that the trash enclosure is a more important one. We're going after businesses for violations of the trash enclosures, so we should definitely come into compliance with that. But certainly looking for direction from you on how important going further on the steps at this point is.
I think knowing that we're short-staffed, it might make the most sense is to proceed with a mission to do a more permanent fix on the steps and entertain bids and look at actually remedying the problem rather than there has been a lot of effort there. So as much as I would love to do a little painting, I'm inclined to say, well, let's work on, the things that are more priority. That's just my thought.
I tend to agree, since we have a plan, we don't have a timetable, we have a plan for a permanent solution.
We do have a timetable. There's going to be a proposal in the budget to do the work next year.
Okay. So it's.
Yeah, let's just wait till next year.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree.
All righty, great. Thank you very much. We'll move on.
Yeah.
Okay, F, discussion and possible action regarding We Energy's license agreement for the use of We Energy's right-of-way lands necessarily to connect the East Devonshire Connection Path project to the Waukesha County Lake Country Trail system. Tom?
Yeah, so F and G kind of go together. We're constructing the East Devonshire Path to connect into the Lake Country Trail. It'll create a nice trail spur. But that Lake Country Trail is on land owned by We Energies. And so both We Energies is requiring that we enter into an agreement with them, and Waukesha County is requiring us to enter into a memorandum of understanding with them about the connection. Time is of the essence with this. It kind of came up a little late in the design process. We're not quite finalized with the details. You can still see red lines in the documents, but our city attorney has asked the council to give us your blessing to go forward with agreements pending the final resolution of those items that are still identified as red line items. Any questions on those agreements?
should pursue it.
Go for it.
Just go forward. I've been on the trail, I've looked at the markings and, you know, like where it's coming in, looking into the country trail.
Yep.
You're next on.
Yeah, I knew that, sorry. I've walked the Lake Country Trail and have seen where the markings are for the spur to connect to it from the Devonshire. And as you know, there've been folks who live along that were concerned, but I think it's resolved well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would go forward.
And so as formal legal documents, we would be looking for council action approving those agreements pending final resolution of the red line items by staff.
I would also move
On F
on F and G.
and G. You're good with them doing both?
Second.
I would defer to Tom on if he's okay doing both.
I am fine with that. I often tell the story, at another municipality I worked with, there was one meeting, came into the meeting, and one of the people made a motion to approve items 1 through 14 on the agenda. And the Christmas party ensued afterwards.
And it passed, huh?
They told me I did a good job explaining everything in my memos.
What is, who had the second?
I did.
Okay, is there any further discussion on F and G? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, H, update from Alderperson Schaefer regarding the May 22nd, 2023 meeting of Lake Country Fire and Rescue member municipality representatives.
Okay, I'll bring you up to date on the discussions, and then I think Tom is going to get into the explanation of the proposed amendment to the intermunicipal agreement, the IMA. Tom and I met with representatives from the other 6 LCFR municipalities on May 22nd to discuss the budget. As you know, Lake Country Fire and Rescue is requesting an increase to about nearly 2.5 times what their current budget was. We had a stopgap measure approving capital budget for 7 new hires in 2023, and this council and our citizens via referendum approved fire fee that will support those 7 new hires into the foreseeable future. The other, the full $4.7 million, well, I'll stay away from the numbers because Tom's going to get into detail, but the full request by Lake Country Fire and Rescue would require, under the current cost allocation, would require another $400,000 plus, I think it's $424,000 on top of what we've approved under the current cost allocation. So I think we made it clear to the other municipalities that while we are fulfilling our commitment under the current IMA, that is, we pay over 40% of the entire budget, that is valid up to CPI plus 2%. Well, the increase that's being requested is far beyond that, so the IMA would need to be amended regardless. And that we are not comfortable with, and we've not approved paying that 40% plus of the full requested budget over the next 3 years. We think for one, we believe that the independent third-party study of the IMA that was recommended by Chief Fennig, the Wisconsin Policy Forum analysis, is an important thing to do. We did not get support from the other communities of that. Shenequa and Nashotah, I think, may have give us some support there, but the others did not. There essentially, asking us to fund the full budget request under the current IMA cost allocation. What we've approved, we consider to be more than our fair share based on if a universal fire fee was implemented, which I think we supported here. It's more than fair based on the fact that there are 7 municipalities. We're third largest, yet we pay nearly twice as much as the next contributor. And so we're looking for a more equitable cost allocation before we do anything different. So we're standing with our increase of contribution from about 1.1 million, a little over 1.5 million, as we approved and as our citizens approved. The other communities, we disagreed. It was sort of a 6-1, 6 against 1 feeling in that meeting. And there were suggestions that from the other community, at least one other community, that we should be targeted for service cuts if we don't agree to additional funding requests. It was suggested that they may issue press release to do a PR campaign implying that we're not supporting the agreement. However, we are supporting the current agreement. This budget increase requires a change to the agreement. And so there's a disagreement on what that change should be. And Tom has the proposed amendment from that I think he's going to, well, it was in the packet, but we can discuss that. Again, that states that the budget can increase by consumer price index plus 2% annually, no more. But they're requesting an exception to increase it to over 4.7 million in 2024.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, they did not agree with what we were saying and that they're threatening to publicly accuse us of and cutting services to our community if we don't agree with what they're
It was implied.
requesting?
It was implied.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to chime in a little bit. Mark's description almost sounds like the meeting was calm. I just want to make it understood it was a very contentious, very adversarial meeting. It was, when Mark says it was 6-1, it was most definitely 6 against 1. And it's unfortunate. We're in conflict right now. We're at a stalemate right now. Our partners have rejected the option to bring in a third-party intermediary to help resolve it. And in this meeting, I guess I was hoping for more progress. I was hoping for more open-mindedness, but it was just a forum for people to chime in on what they thought of the city of Delafield, not agreeing to a 74% pay increase or budget increase from 2023 to 2024. We were highly criticized for only approving a 39% budget increase. That intermunicipal agreement is written such that partners are supposed to respect other partners' decisions as far as what they can afford. It's written so that any one community can, cause a budget increase to be limited. That's how it's intended to work. That's how it is working, and it's disappointing how frustrated not only the other municipalities, but the management of LCFR are about the city of Delafield's decisions and not respecting those decisions.
It was a very contentious meeting. I think very telling is the fact that they don't want an independent, third-party objective analysis of the agreement and the cost sharing. There's only one reason not to ask for that analysis and that evidence to help decision-making going forward, is they like the fact that, well, we represent 25% of the LCFR population and 14% of the area. We pay over 40% of the budget. I don't know how that's considered equitable, but.
So what happens now?
That's a good question. People left the room thinking that there's really no reason to meet again. You know, I'm kind of presuming what this council's action is going to be in the next agenda item. And if that's the case, I foresee that that would set the budget. Mark talked about service cuts. There was some discussion that even if the city only pays its fair share of a $3.7 million total budget, that the other communities may choose to pay their fair share of a $4.7 million budget, which is the board recommended budget, and that's their justification why the city of Delafield should then incur some kind of service cuts that were, you know, not elaborated upon as far as what those would be, or if LCFR would only respond to every other city of Delafield call, or what, how that would be handled. But and you know, the interesting part is a lot of those types of threats about a PR campaign against the city and things like that came from the municipality that pays the least amount. You know, a very, very negligible amount of the total budget.
Part of me would say bring it, because we are, just with the basic numbers, we are not the biggest municipality, and yet we're paying a much larger share. We're asking for equity, not a special exception, but just this doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, if they don't want someone to come in and mediate, it's very telling. I agree. So, yeah.
Tom, but where do we stand from a legal standpoint? What does that contract really say? If we were in court tomorrow, would we win or lose?
Well, we'd win. I mean, if the city wanted to, we could set the budget at 0 increase. It's basically whoever the least common denominator is, that's what sets the budget. That's how the agreement's written.
We're in agreement.
It worked really well for 10 years. Really well.
What options do we have as far, I mean, because weighing out the options as far as, I don't respond well to threats, and I want to do what's right. Like, I'm not going to make a decision that I know isn't right for the city based on threats from other communities. That doesn't fly with me. At the same time, I don't want our community to be cut in services and things, but long term, what are we looking at here? Because this does not seem like we're in a very good situation as far as the intermunicipality agreement at this point is now, like, to me, I'm like, we pay 40% of the budget. Okay, why are we funding all these other communities? At this point, I'm like, if we're going to be increasing it at this point to this level, sorry, my thoughts are not, what options do we have? I mean, is all of our options as far as this goes, like, we either fund what they are requesting, we don't fund it at all, and don't have services. I mean,
Well, you held a binding referendum, and your citizens told you that they want to increase what they pay significantly, but not to the point of what the LCFR board is recommending. So I think the path is clear that for 2024, there's a $450 fire fee, and that's what we're going to pay towards LCFR.
Okay. I think we have to honor what our citizens, go ahead.
Say it supports the 7 additional firefighters that they plan to hire this year.
You know, between other communities and between LCFR management, there's been some disappointment that the city did not go for a larger referendum, that we didn't go for the full $560 fire fee that would have funded the full amount. They point to the 70% success rate in the referendum, that people want the additional fire services, so that's the approach that they're taking. But yet, you know, the council had to make a difficult decision. The council needed to approve a number that they felt could pass. You know, there's plenty of precedent in the area for failed referendums for fire. So that's what I struggle with, is the lack of respect that each of these communities has an obligation to do what they think is best for their citizens, and that we should be respecting that amongst one another.
So all right, we already said what we're willing to contribute at this point, so if they don't vote to increase their contribution, then what happens to those 7 firefighters?
So if you remember, we set our contribution based on an amount that retains the 7 new hires that are to be hired in 2023.
Okay.
Retains them, but does not approve the 7 additional hires that the board is recommending to be made in 2024.
It will maintain the 7 that we have for 2023, so we won't lose them, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But there has,
But if the other communities had stepped up to what we thought was appropriate, then we would have been able to hire those other 7. I'm confused.
No, the other
I
communities
thought that
they are planning on approving an amount to hire 7 more in 2024. But our fee was not based on that. Our fee was based on, if they don't change the intermunicipal agreement and the allocation of the funding, then it would only retain the 7 hires. In order to hire the 7 new employees in 2024, it relied upon the other municipalities agreeing to eliminating the fixed allocation part of the methodology and allocating all costs based on the population, call volume, property value formula.
But if they did that, then our portion fully funds our portion of it.
If they did that, yes.
And
But
they
they
didn't. Okay.
most definitively have no interest in doing that at this time.
Okay.
from a cost perspective, though, there has to be more than 7 additional firefighters to get us from 2.7 million to 6.7 million.
Now, 2.7 million was the budget in 2023, and 6.7 is 2026.
Are we talking about?
4.7.
There's 7 in 2023, agreed.
Yep.
And then the department wants to hire 7 more
In 2024, and then 6, and then 3 or 4 more in 2026.
But even that
Total of 23.
sounds like it won't get us to 2.4 times the current budget.
Those are the numbers from the fire board. There are some smaller program additions that pale in comparison to the staffing increases, things like adding a drone program and some personal protective equipment and training for entering into difficult work zones and things like that. And but those were all, those were, the order of magnitude of those things were tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, this is a staffing increase, 23 full-time over the 4 years. So, yeah, it's all staffing.
So, Dirk, actually, here's one more thing that explains it now that I think about it. So the 2023 operating budget was 2.7 million, but they're also using all of the capital contributions towards operating, And they're also using over $400,000 of fund balance towards operating. So in 2023, despite the fact that the operating budget that the municipalities gave them was 2.7 million, they're actually spending, I think it's somewhere around 3.7 million on operations. And then our funding for 2024 would keep us, I think it increases their budget. If you consider their operating budget, all those components for 2023, what we're funding for 2024, if I remember right, is $40-some thousand higher than that.
It's a lot of numbers.
The other communities pay what we think is their fair share. We get there too, right? We get the fund, they get the budget they need, or that they request. They'd like us to continue paying 42%.
And I just want to mention one thing, the only other community that did a referendum was the town of Delafield. They did theirs through 2024. So unless, like us, they go back to referendum again, they'll be in the hot seat with us next time. Right, as far as the opinion of the other communities.
Be in the
So
same position we are.
they'll be in the same position we are. So do you feel like you have a flavor of the meeting? Okay, so we'll move on to 11I, discussion and possible action regarding an amendment to the Lake Country Fire and Rescue intermunicipal agreement as proposed by the town of Genesee to add an exception to the 2024 to exceed the CPI plus 2% limit on total charges assessed by the fire department and require all member municipalities to fully fund the Lake Country and Fire Board recommended operating budget for 2024 of $4,769,999.00. So hopefully our prior discussion makes this part of it pretty clear, but Tom, you just want to go over that again?
Yeah, in the intermunicipal agreement, any municipality can propose an amendment to it, and then that amendment only gets adopted if each individual governing body approves it. This amendment proposed by the town of Genesee, I thought the timing was poor. We announced that we were going to have this meeting to try to come to some understanding and try to work through our issues. Before the meeting occurred, the town of Genesee came out with this proposed amendment that kind of cut to the chase from their perspective and pushed forward what their agenda was and what they wanted to have happen. All indications are that all 6 other municipalities will approve this amendment. 4 communities have done so already. That's Genesee, Wales, Shaniqua, and Neshota. Oconomowoc Lake is voting on it tonight, and Town of Delafield's voting on it next week. And what it does is the current intermunicipal agreement states that the operating budget can't increase by more than CPI plus 2%. Obviously, we need that to change. Even for us to contribute what we want to contribute, that needs to change. So the first crack at making that change was to allow for an exception just in 2024 to exceed CPI plus 2%. But then it goes on to state that the budget shall be the $4.77 million. That is the full board-approved recommended budget for 2024. And it goes on to state that there will be no change to the funding allocation methodology. So in order for the city of Delafield to participate in this, we would have needed the fire fee to be the $560 that we discussed as one of the alternatives back in January. We didn't go that direction. We just did the $450 fee, which allows us to participate at the 3.7 plus million dollar level. I'll just throw out that in the meeting, some of the other communities had suggestions for us on where we could find the additional money. One community stated that we're getting over $300,000 more funding for state shared revenue and that we should use that, even though that doesn't even quite cover it because the amount we need is $424,000. And secondarily, that wasn't a true statement. Everything I've seen so far is we're getting an additional about $180,000 in shared revenue. Then the other thing that was mentioned is that the city should use its remaining ARPA funds to fund this, but we've already committed to that being used to subsidize our entire operating budget for the next 2 years. So they did have some ideas on where we could get the money from, but as told to the public during our public education efforts during the referendum campaign, the intention was that the fire fee would fully fund the fire department operating budget, and that it wouldn't rely on any other revenue sources to do that. So that's where we're at. And from my understanding of the council's intention, we should be rejecting this amendment to the IMA.
If this amendment included a revision to the cost allocation, remove the fixed allocation from the formula, we could agree to this.
Absolutely.
If the 4.769999 number was more like 3.7 million in round numbers, we could agree to this, but that's not what we intended. We intend to participate fully under a more appropriate cost allocation.
Correct.
But that's not here, so we can't approve this as it's written.
Is there any other questions on this or any need for further explanation?
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
Sounds like we need to take a formal action on this.
Oh, yeah.
We do, yes.
With that in mind, I move that we approve the IMA.
Well, I don't, that's,
The IMA exists.
The IMA amendment, I'm sorry, as proposed by the town of Genesee. My point there is to put it on the floor so we can discuss it. Then if we vote against it, then we voted against it, but rather than make a negative.
You could move.
Negative.
yeah, you could simply move to
Reject
reject it.
Yeah.
I would so move.
Okay,
Second.
second. Okay,
Who had the second?
Mark.
Mark and Paul sound very much alike.
Never hear me when I say something, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just
My
to
booming
clarify,
voice.
the motion was to reject this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was kind of an amended motion, but.
It works either way, as long as you know which way to vote.
Yeah. Okay, so is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of rejecting the amendment as proposed?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion fails.
Ken, just a little.
Motion.
Carries to deny. Motion carries to deny.
Carries. Just a little follow-up on this. Is there any interest by the council in proposing our own amendment to the IMA? And we couldn't do that tonight, but I could bring that back on the next agenda.
I think it's worth discussing.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I do.
Then we have to go on the offense and throw it right back on.
I'm pretty sure we'll approve it and 6 people will reject it, but.
But to clarify our
Yep.
intentions, which I think we did in the meeting, but
Ahead of that too, when
Formalize it.
they're also talking about really doing a press release. Is it possible, I just wanted to have something prepared to be able to respond to that or get ahead of it, that explaining why, like explaining our position. I feel like we've put that out there a lot, but just something like a simple statement that would be able to respond to that if that comes about.
I think we'd prefer not to get into that game, I'm gonna call it a game, so let's not get ahead of it, but
Well, just to have something
But-
prepared that maybe.
I know that if we get called by
somebody forces
the,
us into
Yeah,
it.
that
It's
we
by,
have
it's
a.
written up here already.
and mine's written as well.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're prepared to respond to those.
Not unless we're forced into it.
You know, you know,
I would say we're getting a little bit off of the topic of the agenda
Okay.
into what we would have as a future request for items. I don't know, if somebody disagrees.
I like the suggestion for our own amendment proposal. And
Okay.
maybe we should get that on for the next meeting, so.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll move on to J, approval of the voucher list.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, report of city officials, 12A, city administrator. 1, update regarding Walgreens Company versus City of Delafield, Waukesha, case number 22, CV as in Victor, I-498.
yeah, so I did email the council and the mayor earlier that after the city rejected the settlement offer from Walgreens, Walgreens immediately dismissed the case. And so I just wanted to put it on the agenda to make the public aware of that.
Okay, we'll move on to 12A2, update regarding streetlight installation project at the intersection of Highway C and I-94 eastbound on-ramp as requested by Mayor Atwell. If you,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, if you recall, we approved that in the capital budget this year, and I'm just looking for the council to get an update on what the status is.
And the status is I've not worked on it yet. I will be making an effort to get to that. It does require some coordination with We Energies and Wisconsin Department of Transportations to make it work. But so I'll be adding that, it's been on my to-do list, but I'll probably bump it up a little bit.
Appreciate the update. Okay, 12B, city clerk.
Just an update on a few of the assessment reports. The municipal assessment report was filed. That's kind of the first report, but then the finalized statement of assessment. I reached out to the county. The county files that on our behalf, and the county treasurer did note that it should be filed this week. The communicator was mailed out on Friday. Did anybody get a communicator?
I got
over
it.
the weekend? Okay.
Got it today.
My daughter was even reading it.
Excellent. And then the final item is I got the determination from the Census Bureau regarding the population count for the St. John's group quarters. So in the packet, I had provided some information on the process of filing the group quarters review. It was relatively simple. I just had to get some information from St. John's and make sure that they provided a letter that covered all the bases, and a count of their students. And in the process of filing the paperwork, I was looking into the definitions of what is juvenile group quarters. And there were 3 that were eligible for the census recount, and that was the group homes for juveniles, non-correctional resident treatment centers for juveniles, non-correctional, and then resident treatment centers for juvenile. I got the same thing in here 3 times. So there were 3 different group types. And of course, let me find those. I have my notes in here and I apologize. I copied and pasted incorrectly. So give me just one moment. I even pull it out. I'm so sorry for the delay. All right. The juvenile facility, so group homes for juveniles, non-correctional, which is like a community-based residential living facility, a residential treatment center for juveniles, non-correctional, and then correctional facilities intended for juveniles. So those are the three that were eligible. The report from the original census that qualified all of the items specifically states that the 2020 census residence criteria and residence situations that boarding school students living away from their parents or guardians' home while attending boarding school below the college level, including Bureau of Indian Affairs boarding schools, were to be counted at their parents' or guardians' homes. So after finding confident that we would get that count back, and that in the past it was probably counted incorrectly or there were different criteria when the count was done in 2010. Clarified that a little bit for me before I went through the process, and they were unable to qualify without me actually submitting the information. So I did that, and the determination came back that the St. John's population is out of scope for this particular recount, and it doesn't qualify for the other option either, which is based on like territory or incorrect territories and such. So unfortunately, we are not getting that count of 100 and some odd students back into our population, or are we getting that liquor license that we're on the cusp of because of that. So I know, how darn. But on the plus side, all of the development that we have coming in will hopefully get us over that population number.
Molly, does that mean that St. John?
That would be something based on the qualifications from 2010. I didn't ask them for that. I did, if you note in the information that was provided, there is a map and the items in blue or the 2010 census count, and in that black for the residential facility it was 308 in 2010, and then in 2020 the count there was 0. So my assumption was that we should have had it, and then when I started the process I kind of came to realize that at least in this particular count it was counted correctly.
But I think she mentioned before it was either an error or the criteria changed between 2010 and 2020. But it was a rather significant deal for a couple of different reasons. One of them, we had to redistrict because that changed it, and District 1 had to be changed pretty significantly, which was odd. So thanks for doing the investigation, Molly.
Right. So that's all for the clerk's office, unless there are any questions regarding the process or anything else that we have going on upstairs.
Sounds good. I'll
Thank
go to
you.
12C, City Treasurer's Report, April 2023 Treasurer's Report. Refer you to the packet. And last, D, Council Request for Future Agenda Items. We have one. Are there any other ones? Any other ones? Seeing none, we'll move down to 13 and refer you to any correspondence. And then we have, and these are the different correspondence in the packet, is that correct? A, B, C, and D?
Yes.
Okay. Seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 9:05.